The containment field shimmered blue as I pressed my sensory appendage against the observation glass, my 3 hearts beating in what I can only describe as confused fascination. My name is Vorthak, and in my 27 cycles as a xenobiologist for the Galactic Research Collective, I thought I had seen everything the universe had to offer. I was wrong. Spectacularly, hilariously, terrifyingly wrong. Tell me again why we're studying this particular human specimen, I said to my research partner, Quillix, who was currently reorganizing our data tablets for the 15th time today. Quillix was methodical to a fault, which made him an excellent scientist and an absolutely exhausting roommate. Because, Vorthak, High Command wants to understand human bonding patterns with Earth fauna before we approve their application for colonization rights in Sector 9, Quillix replied without looking up. Specifically, they want to know why humans insist on keeping predators as companions. I glanced back at the containment area where our human subject sat cross-legged on the floor. The human was young, maybe 8 solar cycles old if I remembered the briefing correctly. Small for his species, fragile-looking. His name was Danny Martinez, and according to his file, he weighed approximately 30 kilograms soaking wet. Next to him, in a separate but adjacent containment field, was the creature, the honey badger. Quillix, do you have the threat assessment file on that animal? I asked, pulling up my datapad. I do. Why? Because I want to confirm that I'm not having a neurological malfunction. I scrolled through the information, my mandibles clicking faster with each line I read. This says the honey badger, scientific name Mellivora capensis, is considered one of the most fearless and aggressive creatures on Earth. That's correct. It says here they've been documented attacking lions, buffaloes, and even groups of adult humans when threatened. Also correct. It says their skin is so thick that it's nearly impervious to arrows, spears, and even some projectile weapons. They can survive multiple venomous snake bites. They have teeth and claws designed to tear through flesh and bone. I looked up at Quillix, my voice rising. And we put one in a room with a human child because Quillix finally met my gaze, his bioluminescent patches glowing with what might have been amusement. Oh, because the child asked if he could bring his pet to the station. High Command approved it as part of the behavioral study. His pet. I repeated the words slowly, hoping they would make more sense the second time. They didn't. The child keeps a honey badger as a pet. Apparently so. I turned back to the observation window, watching as young Danny reached into a container and pulled out what looked like a piece of dried meat. The honey badger, which we designated as Subject B7 but Danny called Biscuit, immediately waddled over on its short legs. Here you go, Biscuit, Danny said cheerfully, holding out the treat. Good boy. Who's a good boy? You are. The honey badger. This creature that had been documented fighting off entire packs of predators, took the meat gently from the child's hand, and made a sound that could only be described as contented chirping. This violates everything we know about predator-prey dynamics, I muttered. Humans aren't prey, Quillix pointed out. They should be. Look at them. No natural armor, no claws, no venom, no protective scales. Their young are completely helpless for years after birth. They're slow, they're soft, they're basically ambulatory snack packages for anything with teeth. And yet, Quillix said quietly, they're the dominant species on their planet. I had no response to that because he was right, and it bothered me more than I cared to admit. The door to the observation deck slid open, and in walked High Assessor Draxil, her crystalline form refracting the station lights into 1,000 colors. She was the ranking officer on this research station, and her opinion would carry significant weight in humanity's colonization application. Status report, she commanded, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. The subjects have been in proximity for 4 standard hours, Quillix reported. No signs of aggression from either party. Interesting. Draxil moved closer to the observation window. What about the additional test subjects? Gid, my stomach. All 3 of them. Sank. Additional test subjects? Yes. The human child's parents are bringing several more of their companion animals aboard. They should arrive within the hour. She consulted her data slate. Let me see. We have 2 dogs, 1 cat, a parrot, and something called a guinea pig. More predators, I groaned. The guinea pig is herbivorous, Quillix offered helpfully. Oh, wonderful. One herbivore among a collection of killers. I feel so much better. Draxil fixed me with what passed for a stern look among her species. Vorthak, you're being dramatic. Observe, document, and analyze. That's our job. With respect, High Assessor, I don't think you understand what we're dealing with here. Humans don't just coexist with predators. They domesticate them. They bring them into their homes. They let their offspring sleep next to creatures that could kill them without effort. Perhaps, Draxil said thoughtfully. That's precisely why they're worth studying. Before I could respond, an alarm chimed softly. Quillix checked his console and his bioluminescent patches flashed orange. Never a good sign. What is it? I demanded. We have a situation. Containment breach in Bay 17. What breached? The Vortan specimen we collected last week. It's escaped its holding cell and is moving through the ventilation system. Ice, or whatever the equivalent was for my species, ran through my circulatory system. The Vortan was an apex predator from a death world in the Outer Rim. We'd captured it for study, keeping it sedated and secured. It was 3 meters long, had razor-sharp claws, acid saliva, and a temperament that made the honey badger look like a cuddly toy. Seal all sections, Draxil ordered. Where's it headed? Quillix's patches turned from orange to red. According to the sensor grid, it's moving toward the habitation levels. Specifically, toward the human residential quarters. My hearts, all 3 of them, stopped. Danny's parents are in the residential quarters. Correct. Along with approximately 47 other station residents. Draxil was already moving toward the door. Sound the evacuation alarm. Get security teams mobilized. And someone get that child out of the observation room now. I was pulling up the communication panel when Danny's voice came through the speakers. Mr. Vorthak? I think something's wrong with the air vent. I looked at the observation room display, and my worst nightmare materialized before my eyes. The ventilation grate in the ceiling was rattling, and I could see movement behind it. Dark, sinuous, deadly movement. Danny, listen to me very carefully, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I need you to move slowly toward the exit door. Why? What's happening? The grate exploded outward, and the Vortan dropped into the room like death incarnate. It was larger than I remembered, its scales gleaming black under the lights, its multiple eyes fixed on the small human child in the center of the room. Danny screamed, a high-pitched sound of pure terror that made every protective instinct in my body surge forward uselessly. I was separated by reinforced glass and multiple security protocols. There was nothing I could do. The Vortan opened its mouth, displaying rows of crystalline teeth designed to shred and tear. Acid dripped from its jaws, sizzling where it hit the floor. And then, Biscuit stepped between the predator and the child. The honey badger, all 12 kilograms of muscle and fury, positioned itself directly in the Vortan's path. It didn't growl or posture. It simply stood there, small and impossibly brave, facing down a creature 6 times its size. Biscuit, no! Danny cried. Run. But Biscuit didn't run. Honey badgers, I remembered reading, don't run from anything. The Vortan lunged, fast as lightning, its claws extended to rip and tear. Biscuit moved faster. The small earth creature twisted, dodged, and latched onto the Vortan's neck with teeth that shouldn't have been able to penetrate the alien predator's armored scales. But they did. The Vortan shrieked, a sound I'd never heard from the species, and thrashed violently. Biscuit held on, worrying at the wound like his life depended on it. Which, to be fair, it absolutely did. I can't believe what I'm seeing, Quillix whispered. Neither could I. The Vortan was supposed to be nearly invulnerable. It was a perfect killing machine, evolved on a world where everything was trying to murder everything else. And yet, this small, Earth mammal was not just surviving its attack but fighting back with a ferocity that bordered on insanity. The Vortan tried to scrape Biscuit off against the wall. Biscuit released, dropped, rolled, and immediately attacked again, this time going for the creature's underbelly. More black blood splattered across the floor. Security teams are 2 minutes out, Quillix reported. That child won't last 2 minutes, I shouted. But I'd forgotten about Danny. While Biscuit was keeping the Vortan occupied, the 8-year-old human had grabbed something from the corner of the room. A maintenance tool, some kind of plasma cutter used for repairs. Danny, no! I screamed into the communication panel. Get out of there! The child ignored me. Of course he did. Because he was human, and humans apparently had a genetic defect that prevented them from running away from danger like any sensible species would. Danny activated the plasma cutter and ran, toward the fighting animals. The Vortan, distracted by the honey badger's relentless assault, didn't see the small human coming until it was too late. The plasma beam, set to maximum intensity, caught the Vortan across its primary visual organs. The creature bellowed in pain and confusion, temporarily blinded. Biscuit took advantage, tearing at exposed joints and soft tissue with methodical precision. The security team burst through the door at that moment, weapons drawn, but they didn't need to fire. The Vortan, bleeding and blind, had decided this prey was too expensive. It retreated toward the broken ventilation shaft, disappearing into the darkness with a final hiss of frustration. Silence fell over the observation room. Danny dropped the plasma cutter, his small hands shaking. Biscuit waddled back to him, blood-stained but seemingly uninjured, and made that chirping sound again. "Good boy, Biscuit," Danny said, his voice breaking. "Good boy." Then the child burst into tears and wrapped his arms around the honey badger, who tolerated the embrace with what looked like satisfaction. I sagged against the observation console, my legs barely holding me up. Did that just happen? According to all sensors and recordings, yes, Quillix confirmed. A honey badger and a human child just drove off a Vortan alpha predator. Draxil stood at the window, her crystalline form utterly still. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a note of something I'd never heard from her before. Respect, maybe. Or fear. Note, in the official report, she said slowly, that the human-designated Danny Martinez displayed protective instincts toward his companion animal. Further note that said companion animal reciprocated these protective behaviors, despite significant personal risk. That's putting it mildly, I muttered. Also note, Draxil continued, that we may need to reevaluate our threat assessment protocols regarding Earth fauna and humans. Especially humans, Quillix added. I watched as medical teams entered the observation room to check on Danny and Biscuit. The child was fine, just shaken. The honey badger had a few superficial wounds but nothing serious. Nothing serious. The creature had fought a Vortan and walked away with scratches. Danny's parents arrived minutes later, bursting into the room in a panic. His mother, Lisa Martinez, swept him into her arms while his father, James Martinez, checked him over for injuries. "We're so sorry," Lisa said, looking up at the observation window, even though I wasn't sure she could see me. "Is everyone okay? We heard there was an accident." An accident. She called it an accident. As if their 8-year-old son hadn't just faced down a creature from a death world armed with nothing but a maintenance tool and absolutely no sense of self-preservation. "Everyone is fine, Mrs. Martinez," Draxil responded through the communication system. "Your son showed remarkable courage. He's grounded," James said firmly. Then he looked at Biscuit, who was being examined by a very nervous veterinary specialist. "But we're getting that honey badger a steak. A big one," Biscuit chirped approvingly. As the Martinez family was escorted to medical for a full checkup, with Biscuit trotting along beside them like a small furry guardian, I turned to Draxil. "Hi, Assessor. I need to revise my initial assessment of the human colonization application." "Oh? Yes." I pulled up my datapad and began typing. Previous conclusion that humans were too fragile for frontier colonization has been withdrawn. New conclusion is that humans are absolutely terrifying, and we should probably approve their application before they decide they don't need our permission. Quillix's bioluminescent patches flickered with what might have been laughter. "You're afraid of them." "Afraid? No," I paused. "Actually, yes, completely terrified. Do you know what the truly scary part is? What? That child, that 8-year-old human, didn't think twice about running toward danger to protect his pet. Not away from it, toward it. And the honey badger, a creature that evolution designed to be basically unkillable, chose to live with humans. Chose to protect one. I looked at the data streaming across my pad, biological readings, behavioral analysis, threat assessments. None of it mattered. The numbers didn't capture what I'd witnessed. "They're not just survivors," I said quietly. "They're partners. Humans don't conquer their world's predators. They befriend them. They turn them into family. And together, they become something more dangerous than either species alone. Draxil nodded slowly. And you believe this makes them suitable for colonization rights? I believe this makes them unstoppable. I saved my report and transmitted it to High Command. In Airsuit, any species that can turn a honey badger into a loyal companion is either insane or brilliant, possibly both. Either way, I don't want to be the one who tells them they can't have what they want. Agreed, Draxil said. The alert chimed on my console. High Command was already responding to my preliminary report. That was fast. Too fast. I opened the message and my mandibles dropped open in shock. What is it? Quillix asked. High Command wants to know, I said slowly, reading the message twice to make sure I understood. If humans would be willing to train honey badgers for security purposes, they're offering a premium contract for consultation services. Quillix made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cry for help. With his species, it was hard to tell. They want to weaponize the honey badgers, he said. Not weaponize, I corrected. Partner with. There's a difference. Is there? I thought about Danny standing his ground with a plasma cutter. I thought about Biscuit charging a creature 6 times his size without hesitation. I thought about the bond between them, forged not through dominance but through mutual respect and affection. Yes, I said finally. There is. And that's what makes humans so dangerous. They don't create weapons. They create families. And there's nothing in the galaxy more terrifying than someone fighting for their family. Down in the medical bay, I could see Danny on the monitor, sitting on an examination table while Biscuit lounged beside him. The child was eating something sweet, probably a reward for his traumatic experience. The honey badger was gnawing on what looked like a large bone. They looked peaceful. Content. Like they hadn't just survived an encounter with a death world predator. And that, I realized, was the most human thing of all. The next morning cycle, I arrived at the observation deck to find it had been transformed into what I could only describe as organized chaos. Equipment crates were stacked against the walls, medical monitoring devices beeped rhythmically, and in the center of it all stood Commander Ryloth of the Galactic Defense Initiative, a Krell warrior whose species was renowned for their combat prowess. Vorthak, he greeted me, his 4 arms crossed in what I assumed was meant to be an intimidating posture. Your report caused quite a stir at High Command. Commander Ryloth, I wasn't expecting military involvement, I said carefully, noting the armed guards positioned around the room. This is a civilian research station. Was a civilian research station, he corrected. As of 0600 hours. This facility has been temporarily requisitioned for a joint operation between Research Division and Defense Initiative. He gestured toward the containment area where Danny and Biscuit had been relocated to a larger, more comfortable habitat. We need to understand what we witnessed yesterday. Quillix entered behind me, his bioluminescent patches flashing yellow with anxiety. Commander, surely you're not suggesting we put the child in danger again? Absolutely not, Ryloth said quickly. But we've brought additional subjects for observation. With the family's permission, of course. Additional subjects? I felt my respiratory sacs constrict. The doors opened, and in walked the Martinez family, accompanied by what could only be described as a menagerie. 2 canines, one large and golden-furred, the other small and wire-haired, bounded into the room with enthusiasm that seemed excessive even for Earth animals. A feline, gray and dignified, walked with measured steps. A colorful avian creature sat perched on James Martinez's shoulder, squawking occasionally. And Lisa carried a small, fuzzy rodent in a portable habitat. Good morning, scientists, Danny called cheerfully, apparently completely recovered from yesterday's near-death experience. Mom and Dad said you wanted to meet the whole family. The large canine, which Danny introduced as Duke, immediately began sniffing everything in sight. The smaller one, called Pepper, started yapping at Quillix, who backed away so fast he nearly knocked over equipment stand. They're friendly, Lisa assured us. Duke is a golden retriever. He wouldn't hurt a fly. Pepper is a Jack Russell Terrier. She's got a big personality in a small package. The feline, named Artemis, ignored everyone and began grooming herself on top of a storage container. The parrot, Rico, kept repeating phrases in human language that I couldn't quite decipher. And the guinea pig, Muffin, made soft chirping sounds from her enclosure. "This is Muffin," Danny said, bringing the small rodent over to show me. "She's the newest member of our family. Want to pet her?" I stared at the tiny creature. It was perhaps 15 centimeters long, covered in multicolored fur, and had large dark eyes that seemed far too trusting for a prey animal. "That creature has no natural defenses whatsoever. She doesn't need any," Danny said simply. "She's got us." Commander Ryloth stepped forward, his expression grave. "Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, thank you for agreeing to this demonstration. As we explained, we need to understand the bonding mechanisms between humans and Earth fauna. Specifically, we need to know if what we witnessed yesterday was an anomaly or representative of broader patterns." James nodded, his arm around his son's shoulders. "We understand, Commander. But I want to be clear about something. These aren't test subjects. They're family. We'll participate in your observations, but nobody gets hurt. Deal?" "Deal." Ryloth agreed immediately. "We've set up several scenarios designed to test protective responses and cooperative behaviors. All completely safe." I wasn't entirely convinced about the safe part, but I held my tongue. The first test was simple enough. Danny was placed in one section of the containment area, while Biscuit was placed in another, separated by a transparent barrier. Between them, we introduced what Ryloth assured me was a completely harmless holographic projection designed to look threatening. The hologram materialized in Danny's section, a creature roughly resembling a Vortan but obviously fake, to anyone with functional sensory organs. Danny, being 8 years old, still jumped back with a startled yelp. Biscuit's reaction was immediate and explosive. The honey badger threw himself at the barrier separating him from Danny, clawing and biting at the transparent surface with single-minded fury. The readings on my console showed his stress hormones had spiked to dangerous levels. "Fascinating," Quillix murmured. "The animal recognizes the separation and is attempting to breach it to reach the child." "Deactivate the hologram," I ordered. The moment the fake threat disappeared, Biscuit calmed slightly but continued scratching at the barrier until we removed it. He immediately ran to Danny, circled him twice, then sat down beside him, making that contented chirping sound. "The bond is genuine," Commander Ryloth observed. "Not trained behavior, instinctive protection." "Now try it with Duke," Lisa suggested. We repeated the test with the large golden canine. Duke's response was different but equally protective. Rather than attacking the barrier, he began barking, a deep, resonating sound that made several of the guards reach for their weapons. When that didn't work, Duke tried digging at the floor beneath the barrier. "He's attempting to create a tunnel," Quillix noted, problem-solving behavior under stress. Pepper, the small terrier, was next. Her response was perhaps the most surprising. She barked even louder than Duke, despite being a fraction of his size, and when that didn't work, she started biting her own leash, trying to free herself from James's grip. "Pepper, easy girl," James soothed. "Danny's okay." Even Artemis the cat, known for her independence, showed signs of distress when the holographic threat appeared near Danny. Her fur stood on end, her pupils dilated, and she made a low, threatening sound I'd never heard from a feline before. "They all respond," I said, more to myself than anyone else. "Different species, different evolutionary backgrounds, but they all recognize the human child as part of their social group and react protectively. That's what family does," Lisa said quietly. "They protect each other." Commander Ryloth pulled up a data slate. "Now for the second phase. We need to test human response patterns. Mrs. Martinez, with your permission, we'd like to place Muffin in a simulated threat scenario." Lisa's expression hardened. "Simulated how?" "Completely safe," Ryloth assured her. "We'll use the same holographic technology. Muffin won't actually be in any danger." After a moment's hesitation, Lisa agreed. Muffin's habitat was placed in the center of the containment area, and the holographic threat was activated nearby. Muffin, being a prey animal with functional survival instincts, immediately tried to hide in the corner of her enclosure, making high-pitched distress calls. Danny was across the room supposedly observing safely. He lasted approximately 3 seconds before running toward Muffin's habitat. "Danny? Wait," James called, but his son was already scooping up the guinea pig's enclosure and holding it protectively against his chest. "It's okay, Muffin," Danny whispered. I've got you. Nothing's going to hurt you. Deactivate the hologram, I ordered quickly. We have our answer. But Commander Ryloth wasn't finished. One more test. I need to see something. Before I could protest, he activated a different program. This time, the holographic threat appeared behind Danny, who was still holding Muffin. The boy didn't see it approaching. Every animal in the room reacted simultaneously. Duke and Pepper both lunged forward, barking warnings. Biscuit charged toward the threat, ready to attack despite it being 3 times his size. Even Artemis leaped down from her perch and positioned herself between Danny and the hologram. Rico the parrot started screaming alarm calls. But the most surprising response came from Muffin herself. The tiny guinea pig, who should have been paralyzed with fear, started making loud, aggressive chattering sounds, actually trying to escape Danny's protective grip to confront the threat. "Stop the test," Lisa shouted. "That's enough." Ryloth deactivated everything immediately. The hologram vanished, but the animals remained agitated. Danny turned around, confused, until his father explained what had happened. "They were all trying to protect me?" Danny asked, wonder in his voice. "Even Muffin?" "Even Muffin," I confirmed, staring at the data readings in disbelief. A prey animal, evolutionarily designed to flee from threats, attempted to confront a predator to protect a human. "Because that's what you do for family," Danny said, as if it were the simplest thing in the universe. Maybe to humans it was. Commander Ryloth stood silent for a long moment, processing what we'd witnessed. Finally, he turned to face the Martinez family. "I owe you an apology. I came here today believing we were studying animals. I was wrong. We're Comblian, studying partnerships, bonds that transcend species barriers. Does this mean we passed your tests?" James asked dryly. "Tests?" Ryloth's mandibles clicked in what might have been a laugh. "Mr. Martinez, you didn't pass our tests. You made them irrelevant. High Command asked me to determine if humans were suitable for frontier colonization, if you could be trusted to interact responsibly with the galaxy's diverse species. And," Lisa prompted, "and I'm recommending immediate approval, with full settlement rights across any available sectors." He paused. "I'm also recommending that the Galactic Defense Initiative establish a formal partnership program with Earth. We need to learn from you." "Learn what?" Danny asked. "Learn how to build bridges instead of walls," I answered before Ryloth could. "How to turn potential enemies into allies. How to create family from the most unlikely sources." Quillix approached cautiously, his bioluminescent patches now glowing a soft green. "Permission to ask a question, Danny?" "Sure. How do you do it? How do you trust these creatures so completely? Biscuit is a predator. Duke is large enough to overpower you. Even Muffin could bite you if frightened. Yet you show no fear." Danny thought about this for a moment, absently petting Muffin, who had calmed down now that the excitement was over. "I guess because I know they won't hurt me. Not on purpose. And if they did accidentally, I'd know they didn't mean it. That's what trust is, right? Knowing someone has your back even when things get scary." "But how do you know?" Quillix pressed. "How can you be certain?" "Because," Danny said simply, "they love me, and I love them. Love doesn't need certainty. It just needs commitment." The observation deck fell silent. Even the animals seemed quiet, as if understanding the weight of that simple statement. Commander Ryloth was the first to speak. "Out of the mouths of younglings," he said softly. "An 8-year-old human child just explained. They're what we've been trying to understand for centuries. The foundation of civilization isn't technology or military might or economic power. It's this: connection, trust, love." "Don't tell High Command I got philosophical advice from a child," Ryloth added, with what might have been humor. "My reputation would never recover." James laughed. "Your secret's safe with us, Commander." The formal testing concluded shortly after, but I found myself unable to leave. I watched as the Martinez family settled into their temporary quarters, the animals arranging themselves throughout the space with practiced ease. Duke claimed a sunny spot near the viewport. Artemis found the highest perch available. Pepper curled up on Danny's lap while he read a datapad. Biscuit lounged nearby, one eye always on his young charge. Muffin munched vegetables in her habitat. Rico preened his feathers on his stand. It looked chaotic, disorganized, nothing like the structured environments most species maintained. It looked like home. Vorthak? Quillix joined me at the observation window. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I said slowly, that we've been approaching species assessment all wrong. We measure technology levels, military capability, resource management, political stability, all the quantifiable metrics. But we never measured this. The ability to form bonds across species lines, to extend family beyond genetic boundaries, to choose loyalty over logic. I turned to face my colleague. Humans aren't special because they're strong or smart or technologically advanced. They're special because they refuse to be alone. They're pack animals, Quillix observed. No, I corrected. Pack animals stay with their own kind. Humans create packs from anyone willing to join. They don't just tolerate diversity. They seek it out, embrace it, defend it. A commotion drew our attention back to the habitat. Apparently, Pepper had stolen one of Biscuit's toys, and a chase was underway. The tiny terrier darted between furniture with the honey badger in pursuit, but it was clearly play, not aggression. Duke joined in, his bulk making him clumsy but enthusiastic. Even Artemis batted at them as they passed her perch. Danny laughed, a sound of pure joy, and tried to intervene. He ended up on the floor, covered in fur and feathers, giggling while his animal family swarmed around him. Lisa and James watched from the doorway, smiling. That, I said to Quillix, is why they'll succeed in the galaxy. Not because they're fearless warriors or brilliant strategists. Because they know how to laugh in the face of danger, how to find joy in chaos, how to build family from strangers. My console chimed with an incoming transmission. High Command's official response to our reports. I opened the file, expecting pages of bureaucratic analysis. Instead, there was a single line. Application approved. Welcome to the Galactic Concordance, humanity. We have much to learn from you. Below that, a personal note from the High Chancellor himself. P.S. Please ask the Martinez family if they'd be willing to host an exchange program. Several council members have expressed interest in acquiring honey badgers. Apparently, word has spread about yesterday's incident. The galaxy is both terrified and fascinated. Well done, Vorthak. You found the one thing we were missing. Hope. I closed the file and looked at Quillix. Well, we did it. Humanity is officially part of the Concordance. Are we ready for them? He asked. Through the observation window, Danny had managed to gather all the animals into a group and was attempting to take a family picture. Biscuit refused to sit still. Pepper kept licking the camera. Duke's tail was blurring the shot. Artemis looked annoyed at the entire proceeding. Muffin was trying to eat the camera strap. Rico was squawking demands for attention. It was messy, imperfect, beautifully, wonderfully chaotic. Ready or not, I said. Humanity is here. And they're bringing their family with them. Danny finally got his picture, everyone more or less facing the camera. He looked at the result and grinned. Perfect, he announced. And somehow, against all logic and reason, it was. Later that evening, after the Martinez family had been escorted to more permanent accommodations and the observation deck had been cleared of equipment, I found myself writing my final report. Conclusion. I dictated to the recording system. Humanity possesses a unique characteristic that makes them ideally suited for integration into the Galactic Concordance. They demonstrate an unprecedented ability to form cross-species bonds based on mutual respect and affection rather than dominance or utility. This trait, which they refer to simply as friendship or family, has enabled them to domesticate and partner with some of their planet's most dangerous predators. I paused, thinking about Biscuit charging a Vortan without hesitation, about Danny running toward danger with a plasma cutter, about Muffin trying to face down a threat, despite being a creature designed by evolution to hide. Most remarkably, I continued, these bonds appear to enhance the capabilities of both parties. The animals become more than their base instincts, displaying problem-solving abilities and protective behaviors that exceed their species norms. The humans become more resilient, drawing strength from their connections rather than viewing them as weaknesses to protect. It is the opinion of this assessor that humanity does not need to adapt to the galaxy. The galaxy needs to adapt to humanity. Their approach to interspecies relations could revolutionize how we understand civilization itself. I stopped the recording and added one final note. Off the record. Personal observation. I came to this assignment believing humans were weak, that their lack of natural defenses, their slow maturation, their emotional vulnerabilities made them unsuitable for the harsh realities of galactic life. I was wrong. Humans aren't weak. There's something far more dangerous. They're hopeful. They look at a honey badger, one of Earth's most aggressive predators, and see a friend. They look at the vast, hostile universe and see neighbors waiting to be met. They look at differences and see opportunities for connection rather than reasons for conflict. The galaxy doesn't stand a chance against that kind of optimism. And honestly, I think that's exactly what we need. I filed the report and prepared to leave the observation deck. Tomorrow would bring new assignments, new species to study, new mysteries to unravel. But tonight, I had one more thing to do. I pulled up the communication system and sent a message to the Martinez family's quarters. Danny, this is Vorthak. Thank you for teaching this old scientist something new. Take care of your family. All of them. The galaxy is better for having you in it. The response came quickly. Thanks, Mr. Vorthak. Biscuit says hi. Do you want to come visit tomorrow? Mom's making something called pizza. She says there's enough to share. I looked at Quillix, who had been reading over my shoulder. Are we going? He asked. Absolutely, I said. Time to learn what pizza is. And maybe, just maybe, time to start building some bridges of our own. Because that's what you did when you met humanity. You learned, you adapted, and if you were very lucky, you became part of the family.